We are a union of democracies. We have a democratic calling. So we will back this process of change with creativity and with determination. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam High Representative. On behalf of the European People's Party, we give the floor to Mr. Salafranca for 2 minutes. Thank you, Mr. President. Madam Vice President, High Representative, ladies and gentlemen, no matter what the outcome of the situation in Egypt is, I think we can say that there is a before and after Tunisia. I don't think we should try to play the blame game in this hemicycle, because we were really caught wrong-footed by this crisis. I want to try and draw some conclusions. First of all, the EU needs to have a higher profile. It needs to speak with one voice. That's why we set up the European External Action Service and the idea of the High Representative in the first place. Secondly, we need to learn the lessons of cozying up to the enemies of democracy, starting in Belarus or Cuba and moving on to the Mediterranean. If there's more stability, more prosperity and more democracy, they all go hand in hand. That's the idea of the Barcelona process. Secondly, President, we need to distinguish between what the Union needs to do in the medium term and what it needs to do in the short term. In the short term, I think that Baroness Ashton has set out a path we can follow. We can back these transition processes so as not to frustrate the desire for freedom in these friendly countries. Also, President, it's our responsibility to flag up the dangers in these processes, making sure that they're not kidnapped by the enemies of freedom and democracy. In the medium term, we need to think long and hard in the EU about how we can reform our neighbourhood policy. We were talking about this with Mr. Füle in the Foreign Affairs Committee. And we shouldn't forget, President, that very often it's harder to keep a balance with freedom and not cozy up to dictators. Thank you. Thank you. On behalf of the Socialist Group, Mr. Severin, 2 minutes.
Chairman, Madam High Representative, Vice President, the present events in Tunisia, Egypt and other countries in the region must remind us that stability without freedom is, if not a mere illusion, at least an unsustainable reality. We must also remember that a revolution or a social upheaval is a guarantee for change, but it is not a guarantee for change to the better. And I hope that we will find the inspiration in order to assist this process and make it a process which means change towards the better and not towards the worse. A deep analysis of the situation in both Tunisia, Egypt and not only is needed, since we have to understand if we did the right things in the past in order to avoid this crisis. What are the steps we should take in the future in order to anticipate or avoid similar crises to occur? And lastly, what could we do in order to make sure that the present crisis would move things towards freedom for people's concern and stability for the region, while avoiding that things will go towards more or another type of instability and another type of totalitarianism or oppression. We need to adopt a preventive and proactive attitude in this respect, and this means strategy. Certainly our messages were correct when balancing the keyword reform with the keyword order or stability, but the devil is precisely in the details, and indeed is a feel of many of us that we didn't address yet these details, and we didn't show enough vision and enough strength in addressing these challenges. This should include also our capacity to talk to all valid actors, including the Islamic forces, in such a way as to be able to integrate all of them into a positive process. We do hope that the Commission and the Council will be able to shape such a strategy in the future, and we will be happy if you could tell us more about that. Thank you.
On behalf of the Liberal Group, Mr Verhofstadt, 4 minutes, please.
Oui, Monsieur le Président.
President, I think that what we're currently seeing in Tunisia and in the last few hours in Egypt is both historic and tragic, because we've heard that there are hundreds and hundreds of injured over just the last few hours. And I can see a parallel between what's going on in the Middle East and North Africa now and in Europe in 1989. And that's why I'm surprised and disappointed by Europe making exactly the same mistakes that it made in 1989. It's quite incredible, President, that we, the so-called democratic continent, have failed to give unreserved support to the people down in the roads, people who ask for no more than our support. I haven't heard yesterday or today anyone say that, and not the High Representative either. Why is it that our reaction is such a weak one, Mrs. Ashton? Indeed, we've hardly reacted at all. You reacted. France, Germany and the UK have put out a statement without any consultation, as though Europe wasn't here at all. Indeed, the only sound statement from Europe came from outside of the EU, namely from the Turkish Prime Minister, Mr. Erdogan, who said to Mr. Mubarak that he should listen to the demands set by his people and that he should therefore leave. That's the only decent European reaction that we've heard. I think that the statement that you make today is very important for those out protesting in the streets and who are fighting for their lives in some cases. I think that two errors have been made in Europe in the last few days. First of all, we haven't really taken measure of this historic moment in time, but also we failed to analyse the situation properly. We're scared of putting out the wrong type of statement. We're scared of an Islamic government after the elections. Well, I'm not scared of that, because I have trust and faith in the Tunisian and Egyptian peoples. They want democracy, and that's why the Coptic Christians and the Muslims are marching in the streets shoulder to shoulder, because they want a real open democracy. Let me give you a second example. We shouldn't be afraid to speak out in favour of democracy in these countries. You'll be familiar with the name Mohamed Bouazizi, who kicked off the entire set of demonstrations when he set himself alight in Tunisia. Mrs. Ashton, on his coffin there was not the green flag of Islam, there was the red flag of Tunisia draped on that coffin. This is not, and these are not, Islamist revolutions. These are revolutions aimed at winning their freedom. Thousands of people have been gathering in Cairo over the last week. But the same is going on in Yemen, Jordan, Syria and Algeria. Mrs. Ashton, I call on you now to change the EU's position. I'd like to hear you say here and now in this chamber very clearly that the EU stands 100% behind the Egyptian people and its demands. We want Mr. Mubarak to listen to what his people are saying to him, and that he leaves his country to democracy. And that's what I'd like to hear from you in your response to this debate.
Thank you. On behalf of the Greens, Mr. Cohn-Bendit, 3.5 minutes. Thank you, President. Lady Ashton, you're appealing for calm. Now, let's call a spade here. It's Mubarak's troops who set up a reign of terror today in the streets of Egypt. It's not the demonstrators. Don't call for calm from everybody. Call for Mubarak to stop the attacks on the demonstrators, because he's doing that so that he can say afterwards, I am going to restore order in the midst of chaos. Cairo is about to fall and we're saying to everybody, calm down. No, we should be saying with Mr Burak, calming things down is to the best way to calm things down, you must say to Mr Mubarak, is to get out of there, and then you'll have calm in Cairo. Next. You've seen the people arriving with knives. Those were Mubarak's police. They were poor people from the depths of the Egyptian countryside. They came in this morning and created this turmoil. You have to say that, Lady Ashton. Don't turn a blind eye to this. And there's something really extraordinary in what you said today. Today you understand everything. Everything that's happened, what was happened in Tunisia 3 weeks ago too. But 3 weeks ago, here in the European Parliament, we, with the Liberals, took an initiative. We asked you to stop the negotiations with Tunisia because of the dictatorship. You said, no, we can't do that. And today, it's possible now. This is after the final bell has rung. So one thing I ask you for, Lady Ashton, on Tunisia, tell us where Europe put its money. Tell us which businesses got European money. Which businesses owned by Mr Ben Ali or his wife were supported by European money. You can tell us. This Parliament is entitled to know that. And the second thing, Lady Ashton, since you say that you're going to support the Tunisian people today, let me ask you for one thing. During the transition, let's have equal opportunities in the democratic process. If there's to be another election, you know that the RCD party has money. The opposition forces that have been prohibited for years have no money. So let the European Union be there to support them so that you can have balance, you can have democratic equality. And now in Egypt, Lady Ashton, there's one thing that's obvious today. If we are not able to support the Egyptians in this process of liberation, well, the people of the Middle East, the Arabs, once again will turn their backs on us. Today we have an extraordinary situation. We've never seen, you said about this, there's been a demonstration in Gaza. You didn't say it, neither did Guy. A demonstration to support the people of Egypt, and Hamas hit them hard. And that is proof that today this liberty is rising up against the theocracies of the Middle East and the Arab world, and it's our role to help them. For years we wept tears. There's no alternative. There's either dictatorship or it's theocracy. Now, inshallah, maybe there is a third way. Freedom, the fight for freedom against dictatorships and against theocracies. And it's our role as Europeans to stand side by side with the people fighting that fight. Thank you.
Mr. Vella.